What is fruit? Most people these days seem to recognize that there are things that we don't generally think of as being fruit, but that technically are fruit, like tomatoes. I think most people know that tomatoes are technically a fruit. But then there are also things like squashes and cucumbers and peppers and eggplant. These things are also fruit. Some people recognize that these things are fruit, but a lot of people don't. But there are many more things that are fruit, which we pretty much no one seems to recognize as such. We have separate like culinary categories for these things, and so we kind of put them into like a different bucket, but they're fruit. So I want to talk about it. I find this very interesting. I nerd out about this kind of stuff. I don't know. In this video, I want to talk about what is fruit. What is it that makes a apple, a peach, a tomato, a pumpkin, a cucumber? What is it that makes these things fruit? And yeah, let's talk about that. Okay, so a very basic definition of fruit is that it's the seed-bearing structure of a flowering plant. There are plants that are flowering, which are called angiosperms, and there are plants which do produce seeds, but they don't produce flowers or fruit, and those are gymnosperms. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not good with pronunciation, okay? I try my best. But as far as seed-bearing plants go, they can be broken down into those two basic categories. If we're gonna compare fruits and vegetables, then fruits are the part of the plant that contains the seed, and vegetables are everything else. So the leaves, the roots, the shoots, the stems, those would all be the vegetables. And depending on the plant, we may eat one part or another from it. So like, lettuce are the leaves of the lettuce plant, whichever lettuce plant, and sweet potatoes are the roots of the sweet potato plant. So, we don't always eat every part of every plant, but anything that's not the fruit or the seed, we would consider a vegetable generally. Again, this is like a culinary term, basically. Now, if we're looking at fruits, they can be either fleshy, which is generally everything that we think of as a fruit is a fleshy fruit, but there are also dry fruits. And then dry fruits can be further broken down into the categories of dehiscent and indehiscent fruits. Again, pronunciation, sorry. Now, of course, things can be broken down even further. There are many different types of fruit, both fleshy and dry. So some types of fleshy fruits would be berries. So blueberries, cranberries, also grapes, tomatoes. Tomatoes are a berry. Poms, similar to berries, but have a leathery endocarp. Let's look at that really quick. The pericarp is a term used to describe the tissues of a fruit surrounding the seed or seeds. And within the pericarp, there are different layers: the exocarp, mesocarp, and endocarp, and then the seed. So poms, similar to berries, but have a leathery endocarp. So apples, pears, quinces are examples of poms. Drupes, also similar to berries, but have hardened endocarps. So peaches, plums, cherries, and apricots. Peepos. Peepos are also berry-like, but have tough exocarps, referred to as rinds. So pumpkins, melons, cucumbers are peepos or pepos. Hesperidium, I like that word. Another berry-like fruit, but with a leathery exocarp. Oranges, lemons, tangerines, seems like the citrus fruits are Hesperidiums. So even within the things that we normally think of as vegetables, but are actually fruits, like, squashes and tomatoes and cucumbers and whatnot, those are all fleshy fruits, but there are also dry fruits. And I was pretty mind blown when I found out that these things were actually fruit. And I've been thinking about it for like a long time since then. And so I'd like to share with you, and perhaps you will be similarly mind blown. All right, Caryopsis. We're getting into the dry fruits again now. Caryopsis, an indehiscent fruit in which the seed coat fuses with the fruit wall and becomes nearly indistinguishable. Corn, oats, and wheat are examples of this type of fruit. As far as I can determine, pretty much it's the fruit of grasses are caryopsis. Achene or achene, an indehiscent fruit in which the seed and the fruit wall do not fuse and remain distinguishable. Sunflowers and dandelions are examples of these. Samara, an achene with wings attached. Maples, elms, and ashes all produce samaras. The little maple helicopters that we call them, they spin around like blah, 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 whatever. Those are the fruits of maples. And you can open them up and eat their seeds, actually. A nut, an indehiscent fruit in which the pericarp becomes hard at maturity. Hazelnuts, chestnuts, and acorns are examples of nuts. True nuts, then, are fruit. It gets a little complicated because some things that we consider nuts botanically are not actually nuts. So yeah, but true nuts are a type of fruit. Follicle, dehiscent fruits that break apart on a single side. Milkweeds, peonies, columbines. Legumes, dehiscent fruits that break apart on multiple sides. Beans and peas are examples of legumes. Legumes are fruit. Capsule, it's another type of dry fruit, and I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but pictured is a poppy flower and it's fruit. So I think it's also important to say that obviously not all fruit is edible to human beings, just like not all vegetables are edible to human beings. There are certain parts of many plants that we can eat and some that we can't. And that's just how it is with plants. It's the same for other animals too. Like they can eat some parts and not other parts, and depending on what you are, depends on what you can eat. And then there are some plants that we can't eat any part of, they're all toxic. But again, some animals might be able to. So that's, an important thing to say too, because I think people, when you think of fruit, you think of something we can eat, but that's not necessarily the case, botanically speaking. Like a thing can be a fruit, but also be inedible. All right, so let's think about the implications of this for a second, okay? So I wanted to talk about this because I watch, plenty of vegan and raw vegan YouTube channels. I don't watch a ton of stuff, but I follow that world, right? I find it interesting. I was vegan for 5 years. I'm not currently, but I'm just interested in diet. I don't know. I'm interested in that kind of thing. And raw vegans, they're like human beings are meant to eat fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables, fruits and vegetables. That's what humans are meant to eat. And yeah, maybe if that's the case, maybe that is the case. I don't know. We're not going to get into all those arguments about what is the ideal diet for humans. But I just want to point out that when you say fruits and vegetables, you're also saying, you're not just saying like sweet, sugary fruits and then fleshy, savory fruits like tomatoes and cucumbers and, like the vegetables that we buy at the grocery store, like that we consider vegetables. You're saying those things, but also grains, also legumes, beans and legumes. And like people tend to separate that, put these in separate categories. They're like, humans are meant to eat fruits and vegetables, but we're not meant to eat grains. We're not meant to eat, these starchy things or whatever. Like different people have different ideas about this. But it's a fruit. Grains are fruit. Rice is fruit. Wheat is fruit. Rye, oats, barley, like these things are fruits. Black beans and kidney beans and freaking black-eyed peas and lentils. I'm trying to think of beans. Lentils, it's all fruit. It's fruit, man. Botanically speaking. And so it kind of feels like people making these distinctions, obviously, because we're not all botanists, right? We just kind of know what we know on a popular level. And so if, you think humans are meant to eat fruits and vegetables, then you think, yeah, fruits and vegetables like you buy at the grocery store, that you can pick off a tree and eat it. But that's not what fruit is. Fruit's more than that. So, it depends on the person, of course. Everyone's got different ideas about this kind of stuff and different views. And there are plenty of raw vegans who will, you know, look for like legumes that you don't have to cook to be able to eat. You'll just, if you soak them and sprout them, then you can eat them raw, and they'll do that. But there are a lot of raw vegans who just kind of take their popular level understanding of what fruit is and just think, oh, well, that other stuff is not meant to be eaten because it's not fruit, right? They think you need to eat a fruit-based diet, and legumes and wheat aren't fruit, so they're not included. But they are fruit, so maybe they should be included. Obviously, most of the time we're cooking them. So like if you don't want to cook your food, fine, I don't know. Like you can make that choice. But I just wanted to point it out because I think that like a lot of people just have this misunderstanding about what fruit actually is, and you might be restricting yourself more than you need to, right? Just based on this false assumption of what fruit is and isn't. Like if I eat a grain-based diet, I'm eating a fruit-based diet. It's just gonna be like more cooked probably than a raw vegan fruit-based diet, right? But it's still fruit-based, like technically. It's like if I'm eating mostly bread, it's fruit-based, okay? That's all I'm saying here. I'm gonna be eating a fruit-based diet that consists of bread. That's what I'm trying to say. I like having these sorts of thought experiments where I'm like kind of thinking about, my cat wants to chew my fingers. Thinking about like some misconceptions I might have, you know, or wrong assumptions that I might have, and trying to like correct them. I enjoy doing that. And I think it's kind of liberating too, like with any kind of subject that you're doing that with. I think it's liberating, like knowledge is power, right? But like in this case, if you want to be like plant-based and you're getting influenced by these people who are like, humans are frugivores, right? Like you're only supposed to eat fruit, like, no, right? It's like, well, do they know what they're talking about? Like, if they don't know what fruit is, like maybe they have a response to this that I haven't seen, I don't know. But it's, yeah, like don't overly restrict yourself is what I want to say. All right, now it is still winter here, so there's not a lot of fruit growing out here, but I can find some, and so I thought I'd pop outside and show it to you. I have a beautiful American sycamore, big beautiful American sycamore in my backyard here, and let's see if we can find some fruit. You can see some still hanging up there on the branches. This is the fruit of the American sycamore. It's a spiky seed ball. I can't break this one open, it's still kind of hard. But it has like hundreds or thousands of tiny little seeds in it. It is not edible by humans, but alas, still fruit. I would have just filmed outside the whole time, but my neighbor's chickens, if they know someone's around, they literally never shut up. So you're gonna have to excuse them. I'm sorry. Okay, so here's one that's kind of breaking apart because it's all wet and it's been on the ground for a while. So it's got all its little seeds, but it's fruit. It's fruit, y'all. Wow, what a lovely day. We have a lot of these in Pennsylvania. So behind me here is a black walnut tree. We have a lot of these around here. Now the black walnuts fall in the fall. So what's left is all rotten and gross. But here's one that did not get eaten or taken by an animal. We also have lots of squirrels around here. So black walnuts are interesting. This is one of the examples of something that in the culinary sense, we call them nuts. They're not actually nuts, they're seeds. So you've got the outer hull. It's all rotten now, but it's green when it's fresh. That's the fruit, basically. And then inside, you've got the shell, which is technically the pit. And then inside of this is the kernel, which we eat. So we call it a walnut. but it is, botanically speaking, a seed, and that hull was the fruit. You can't eat the fruit. You can only eat the seed, but it's still fruit. I got tons of frickin' fruit trees in my yard over here. Okay, so like, what is the point of all of this? I just think it's worthwhile to think about these kind of things, because if you are making these like major changes to your lifestyle, like eating a highly restrictive diet that is really difficult and potentially unhealthy, like it's worthwhile thinking about like your just presumptions about things. And it's like, so this is fruit, even though it's basically just seeds, it is fruit. And this may be a bad example because it's not edible by humans, but whatever. It's fruit, and we just don't think of it that way because we haven't been taught that that's what it is, and we have different categories for things at like a culinary level, which is how we're thinking about it. But if we're talking about what humans are meant to eat, then that category is probably broader than what we're assuming, right? Like there's no reason to restrict it to just what we think of as fruit in a culinary sense, if things like grains and legumes and such are also fruit. Like technically, botanically, they really are, even though we don't consider them that. So I just think it's a worthwhile thing to think about. I would love it if you would chat with me about it in the comments. And